Hey, everybody, it is John the Comic Guy, and I want to welcome you to another episode. With me, I have a very special guest. I have my friend, Doug Dreger, who is the inventor and patent holder or patent pending holder for the Sidekick. So I wanted to just bring Doug on because, I find this really the American dream. Who doesn't? Well, especially if you're a comic person, who doesn't have the dream of either creating your own comic, creating an accessory for it? I think that's so cool. So, Doug, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. Thanks so much for having me. Really a pleasure to see you, my friend.
Likewise. So, just to give everybody a little bit of background, so it was probably about 2 years ago I met Doug. We He posted comics for sale. He ended up getting a great collection. When I say a great collection, 100 box collection, right? So he ended up posting books for sale. I actually had the honor of meeting him when we met halfway to buy maybe 10 of these boxes, and then subsequently he had more comics for sale. And so we had an agreement. I actually went to his house because I actually had a meeting maybe about 5 miles from his house. So it was just perfect that I would pick it up. But so Doug and I met a couple of times and we became pretty good friends. We've done conventions together, but so I've actually been to Doug's house.
Yeah, don't forget, I visited you for one of your Thanksgiving weekend garage comic sales. So much fun.
Oh, thank you
Yeah,
so much.
yeah. What a great event. Yeah.
In fact, we're going to do that again. That's a rain or shine event. So anybody who's watching, if you're in the New Jersey area, or some of you venture out in Pennsylvania, Black Friday from like 9 o'clock to 2. We always do a Black Friday sale. We have several vendors there, and if Doug is free, you're always more than welcome to come on by as well.
Cool.
So,
Lots of fun.
so out of curiosity, Doug, because I know you're a comic buyer. So before we even get into the Sidekick, which I love, tell me, how long have you been collecting comics?
Oh, wow. Since I could read, that's how I learned to read. I think as a little kid, my mom was dismayed that I wouldn't read anything but comics. Most of those were handed down to me from an uncle. Um, I was very fortunate as a little guy. I had an uncle who was quite young himself, worked at a small town pharmacy. And when those unsold comics every month, when the owner of the newsstand would snip off the title block of the cover for
Yes.
his credits, yeah. A lot of those remaindered comics went to my uncle and landed in my lap. So that's how I learned to read. My mom wanted me to read books. She changed her tune when my vocabulary and my reading skill just got better and better. So I've been reading comics for 50 years and actively sort of buying collections and reselling for the last 3 or 4 years.
Oh, nice. And by the way, for the viewers out there, if you're so what Doug is referring to is typically in the past, they talk about direct comics now and newsstand comics. Way back when there was no direct market, there was all newsstands. And with these newsstands, they actually had the ability to return or get credits back for unsold inventory. And as you can imagine, a lot of these guys did it. But at that point, to ship these remaindered comics back was very unrealistic, right? And certainly price prohibitive. So there was only a couple of pennies of margin. So to mail anything back would have been silly. What they did ask to get mailed back to give these vendors, these newsstands, maybe the 7-Elevens or pharmacies, credits where they would tear the top 3 inches or 2 inches of the comics off just to prove that they were unsellable. So they would they would slice them, tear them off, mail those back for a couple of pennies of a stamp, and then they would get credit for the next purchase. But what did they do with those comics? They would end up giving them away to family, friends, because they were damaged comics, right? I mean, I think at that point they would be considered a 0.5 or right. I mean, they were really grossly damaged, and they would just give them out. And when you were a lucky recipient of a stack of books from a friend or family member who had these books, yeah, that's big. So, Doug,
The funny thing about that is I would read these till they fell apart almost. Often I would have a favorite superhero or a favorite storyline. I usually didn't know the title of the comic because that had been removed.
oh,
To
yeah.
this day, I'll be flipping through a Bronze Age box at a convention or a shop, and I'll get this flood of nostalgia, and I'm like, oh, that was Cap 105. No one, now I remember. Anyway,
Do you happen to have any of those original comics from the,
I I don't, like so many of us. I think mom had them in the waste bin at some point. I don't have them any longer, but I
yeah,
still love those remaindered copies when I find them. Yeah.
I do too. I love those too, brother. So, I find it really amazing that I think, again, comic people generally, we have grandiose ideas, right? I had a failed attempt at publishing. Right? People have great ideas, and they'll always say, "Oh, if I could do this, I would have done that." Brother, you actually did it. So that is what just blows me away. And out of curiosity, when did you decide to? Because the sidekick is an amazing invention. But when did you decide you were going to start drawing something out? Did you make stuff out of cardboard yourself and try to accomplish this as a collector? When did you kind of say, I'm going to put this to paper and then I'm actually going to have a product? And when did you decide to patent the
Yeah.
sidekick?
Yes, it's been nearly 2 years. It was August of 2022. This is kind of my pandemic project after 24 years in an office job, and a couple of years of those working from home gave me time and bandwidth, I guess, to focus on something. Working from home, avoiding the office commute every day gave me time to chase collections and buy and sell comics. It was so much fun. I had a lot more inventory than usual. I had not only my 150 short box collection up in a spare bedroom, I had boxes and boxes of inventory now, and constantly sorting those and photographing them for eBay or what have you, pricing them for conventions. I got very frustrated with the way comics in a box would flop, fall over, get bent, and get damaged.
Right.
And so, in the back of my mind, I started percolating and came up with the idea of not a divider. The Sidekick does act as a divider in your box with a tab and everything, but something with a physical clip that would grip onto the sidewall of a box and, like a bookend, hold that half a box of comics upright, right? So that they wouldn't fall over and get bent under the weight of the box. I didn't originally intend to market it as a product at all. I thought I'd sketch something up, draw on my 100 years ago. I did go to architecture school, had a bit of a design background. I used CAD, computer assisted drafting, design and drafting as in its infancy back in the 90s. I really just thought I would draw something up, tinker around with it, and make a few for myself. Just solve my problem. It turned out better than I expected. I had some help, did prototypes, had some 3D printed models or prototypes made, found that they worked pretty well. And by mid-September 2 years ago, I decided to go ahead and actually manufacture these things. These are not 3D printed. They're injection molded plastic, like a car part or a medical device would use for some pieces, and give it a whirl and sell these things. By mid-November, my website went live. And some very helpful friends on a Facebook group called Comic Book Buy Sell Trade that allowed me to kind of bend their rule and self-promote a little bit, and launch just in time for Christmas shopping 2022, holiday shopping. And by the time I got my first actual supply of these, we had a few hundred orders to ship out, and it's been gangbusters since. It's been really quite surprisingly fun and busy.
It's amazing. So really from your initial design to actually customer deliverable, how long
Four
do you
months.
think that took?
4 months.
4 months.
Yeah,
Actually,
I didn't waste any time. I just plowed right in. I learned as I went, made mistakes as I went, had 4 or 5 prototypes, 3D printed and then carved from ABS plastic like this to test them out. It's a really dumb piece of plastic. There's nothing to it, right? It's a simple one piece. The magic, if you want to call it that, is in this clip. How deep is the clip? What's in there to keep it gripping your cardboard without damaging your cardboard boxes? Finding that balance. How wide should this be so that when it torques a little bit, it grabs tighter. One of the main questions I get on the thing, especially at conventions or in emails, is, why didn't I put a hook on both sides so that it locks onto both sides of a box? And that was a learning experience for me. I had prototypes that did this. Two reasons I went with a single-sided hook like this, Sidekick, right? It's on one side. For one, these comic book boxes are not all the same width. Some boxes are wider, especially if you go to a magazine box or something like that. And if you have two hooks on a wider box, it pinches them in and causes problems. The second reason I learned in practice is that, I'll turn this around the other way, maybe it'll be more clear. When the Sidekick clips on just one side of the cardboard, like so, right? The weight of the comics, see how it's going to hold there? The weight of the comics tries to open it like a door. It tries to hinge on the grip point right here. The nice thing about that, in fact, is that the pressure that's torquing this thing will cause the grip to grip a little tighter and hold on when it's needed the most. Surprisingly, the prototype with a hook on both sides, the pressure pushing it was even, and the Sidekick would slide more easily out of place. So that torque, that asymmetry, actually helps the stability, helps the design.
But brother, not only are
There,
you a
there you
designer,
see it in action, right?
yeah, so you use science to your benefit.
In a way, in a simple way, I did. Yeah. I remember these terms, torque and,
Yeah,
with force equals mass times velocity, whatever. My physics teacher in high school said physics is so simple a dog can do it when they catch a frisbee, but it's another thing to draw it up and calculate it, right?
yeah,
That's where testing and prototypes came in.
I
So,
love it.
so we now have them for comic books, and then about a year later, I tweaked the design, put on the, use the old Zappa shrink ray, and started marketing little minis. We call them Sidekick minis for trading cards, and those are also selling really well.
I love it. I love it. So it took you about a year before you went from comics to the cards, huh?
Yeah, and that was easy. We knew it would work. The mini's easier. The weights are much lighter weight. The product's smaller and cheaper to make, and so forth. So it was an easy thing to put out the companion piece.
Yeah, nice. I think that's awesome. Matter of fact, my son out in California, he does cards, and I sent your information over to him because he's big into like sports cards, and it's like you
Yeah.
there is a nice little tie-in. So did you find you had any roadblocks? Did anything at any time give you major hurdles that you had to overcome? Because I'm thinking, where would you even know to go find a fabricator?
Google, trial and error, reading reviews, testing out a few places. Yeah. Designing the thing was fun and a challenge. Finding and working with a manufacturer was interesting. I learned a ton because you find those vendors that are more customer service oriented and patient enough to take the time and walk a newbie through the process, right? I didn't know what injection molding was. I could imagine, but I knew these couldn't just be 3D printed and brittle. I wanted them to be, a quality piece of long lasting items. So injection molded plastic, I've learned, you see right in the center of the piece, a little nipple, a little nub. So making a thing out of injection molded plastic meant paying a lot of money, taking a deep breath and paying it, writing out a big fat check for an aluminum mold. The mold weighs about 100 pounds. I've held this thing in my hands. It's like a clamshell. Imagine, you can look this up, imagine two heavy slabs of aluminum pressed together under 100 tons of pressure, forming a cavity inside, and out to one side, about a 12-foot long machine. Think of a huge syringe full of molten plastic. So what happens is the mold pressed together through that tiny little injection point in one face of it. Hot plastic at about 400 degrees, molten plastic is shot in very quickly under pressure to fill every little crevice, right? Even the tiniest of little contours.
Mhm.
Um, Cold water is pumped around the thing to cool it off very quickly. The mold opens, the product drops out, and it's simply made one at a time. I've seen this in action. It takes about 12 seconds per shot. They call them shots. They make these at about 1 per 12 seconds. My manufacturer has now fabricated about 20,000 of these for me, and about 30,000 of the little ones. And they're making more for me as we speak. I love to point out one thing I like to kind of pump is that these are made in the USA. My original manufacturer out in Minnesota called Proto Labs, my new manufacturer closer to home, more cost effective, Echo Molding right here in Union, New Jersey. I can
Nice.
jump in my car and drive about 20 minutes and pick up an order from them. They've been wonderful to work with, and they helped me. That was a long way around answering your question. What was an obstacle for me? It was the price. It was the price. You've got to make a thing cost effective, cheap enough for a person who hasn't tried one to shell out 10 or 20 or 50 bucks for a quantity of these things and try them out.
Yeah.
Originally, I was paying $6 a piece for one of these. How much can you ask somebody to pay for a piece of plastic, right?
Right.
We're all used to walking into a dollar store and walking out with an item for $1. So you know, working on quantities and leveraging efficiencies and finding the right manufacturer, a local manufacturer, is what did it for me.
Oh, very nice. So I am always curious about this because again, I'm so envious of you being able to do this. Between your full-time job and designing and working on the Sidekick, and I kind of know, but I want you to share this with the audience. How many hours for a while when you were first doing this? How many hours a week were you working?
Oh gosh, 2 years ago when I started, and for the next year, I was burning it at both ends, man. Absolutely. Now, my former employer, and I love them. I worked in the insurance industry for 24 years for the same family-owned agency. You know, of course, COVID had us all working from home for these couple of years. I'd be ashamed to tell them just how little I was working on that real job as I got Sidekick up and running. But you know, we multitask, we get the job done. I was typically awake at 4 a.m. answering emails, building my mailing lists, you know, packaging and shipping things. It's all done right here out of our house.
Yeah.
So it was, but it's been so worth it. And surprisingly, it's grown to the point that 8 months ago, I retired early from that office job. And now I do, you know, after 24 years of working for other people, and they were good people to work for, I've decided I'm not going to work for other people anymore. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to make a go of this, and haven't looked back. It's been a pleasure to work from home and work on my own stuff. And I have a son who's going to be 10 soon. He helped me stack boxes on pallets yesterday. You know, he's a helper. He helps me at comic conventions. My hope is that after I've done this for 10 years or so, he'll be old enough, if he wants to inherit, to take over. And there he is. There's my
Welcome.
sidekick. Yeah. Whoops, there he goes. Okay, so he's home from summer and goofing off, obviously.
Nice.
Yeah, so I like to think we'll keep this in the family. And when my wife and I want to sit back and watch him do some heavy lifting, he'll have something he can carry on as a second generation.
I love it. I love it. And he should, hey, he should inherit, you know, all the goodies that you've worked so hard for. I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you have a wife, you have one son. I know you have a couple of dogs. I've met one of them, but I've been
Yeah.
told about the other one, the young lady, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you were putting all these long hours in, um, again before pre 8 months ago, how did that affect family life? It sounds to me you started getting him involved, but putting in a lot of hours, right? It's you're sacrificing for your business. How did that
Yeah.
affect your personal life?
Oh, only in positive ways. Gosh, after 24 years in an office job, I think, John, you can relate to this. A lot of people can. It was a good job. It was a good career, but I didn't bounce out of bed every morning excited to talk insurance to people. It wasn't my passion. It wasn't, I was kind of over the novelty of it. I think my wife sensed very strongly that my heart wasn't in that. I think she was uplifted to see me doing something I liked instead. I don't know if I think she believed from the start. She goes, yeah, comic collectors spend a lot of money on their hobby, on the comics themselves, and travel to conventions, on storage and grading, and you name it. There's room in here for another product. Let's see if we can make this happen. And yeah, I have nothing but support. And dude, I was doing it all from home. I think if I didn't have that occupying my time, I would have driven her up the wall. So it was a blessing, really.
I love it. I love it. The thing I think we all recognize about comic book people is I say, and I also do records. I collect records, but between
Yes,
the comic books, I would say from what I've seen, we're such a fastidious group, right? I always joke that I'm OCD, but I don't think that's really too far off from other people. Collectors, they always, right? The collector always wants to get the best condition comic book. And when you get the best condition comic book, what are our goals? To preserve it. And that's what
absolutely.
this helps preserve whether it's your collection, your investment, whatever you want to call the comic books, it helps preserve the condition.
Or your inventory.
Your inventory.
So one really neat thing I learned, and I've networked, I've met up and talked to so many comic shop owners and card shop owners. It's really interesting because I now have these in about 250 comic shops all over the country, Canada, Europe. So we sell directly to the collector on our website, on Amazon. I prefer to sell them in bulk and wholesale numbers to comic shops. Support that local comic shop, support that local business, and have them be able to leverage their ties with the community of collectors that they've served so well, right? A very interesting thing I learned is happened so often. A comic shop owner, when I speak to an owner, they see this as a product that they can mark up and resell, just like their new releases every Wednesday, just like the bags and boards they sell, the boxes. They talk to me about unit price, quantity discounts, markup, suggested retail price, packaging, and all the rest. The best example is I shipped a case of 50 of these down to Titan Comics in Houston. 3 days later, the guy called me back and said, "Hey, Doug, I need another 100 of these." I said, wow. Already? It hasn't even been a week. He goes, "Yeah, I know. My employees tore open the box and pilfered them. They're using them all over the store. I need more so I can sell them to my customers." And so I stumbled into a really nice dynamic where comic shop owners can use these in their back issues, in their back rooms when they sort a collection they've bought. Tuesdays when they're sorting those pull boxes for the new Comic Wednesdays. As shop owners use them up, customers see them, ask about them, and that's where I get my reorders, because now an owner can get enough in stock to market them to their employees. It's a neat dynamic.
So you've been scaling, because the vernacular you were using here is you were dealing with the stores directly, but something recently changed, and I saw you announce it, and I think we chatted about it. Is Diamond, right? The big distributor, Diamond has picked you up. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Diamond? Because again, before we started recording this, you were mentioning what was in your driveway. Why don't you tell me? Why don't you tell the audience how Diamond and your relationship with Diamond has affected your business model?
Well, it's brand new and it's very exciting, and it's really going to transform what I do. It did not happen overnight. It's been about 18 months since I reached out to Diamond and sent them a couple samples, and in the hopes that they would consider carrying or distributing the product for me. Diamond Comic Distributors, as you know, Steve Jeppy's company, for over 40 years. They've been a powerhouse. That's where comic shops get their merchandise, from the comics themselves, the trade paperbacks, the bags, the boards, the boxes. Diamond has all that stuff. Diamond now owns E. Gerber, those best quality Mylars that we talk about using, right? Diamond owns Gemstone Publishing, Overstreet Price Guide people. I mean, they've got a direct pipeline to 5,000 or 6,000 comic shops all over North America and the UK. So my dream was 3 months in, when I had my first product in hand, is to reach out to them. Hey guys, hey Diamond, it's little old me. How would you guys like to carry these? I mentioned price was a barricade, was an obstacle. At that time, I didn't have my manufacturing costs low enough to make it feasible for them. Because of course, if I have my price and I sell to a comic shop at that price, they have to mark it up for their customer. It results in a retail price. If you need to insert another entity into that food chain, another markup, Diamond needs their cut. Obviously, that's what they do. It was just not tenable. It was moving my manufacturing to New Jersey to Echo Molding that gave me the price point I needed. Back in December 2023, so 6-7 months ago, Diamond, I reached out to them again with my new pricing, and they responded. I got that golden email that said, I felt like I found the golden ticket. Diamond said, these numbers work. We're excited to carry your product. So from then, it did take a little while to get all the fine-tune that pricing, get images and promotional materials to them. I appeared in Diamond's monthly previews catalog in June for the first time. That was just last month. So for the very first time, I'm back on page 458 or whatever, right along with their supplies, their bags, their boards, their boxes. There was my product, and now we wait. Will comic shops see this and now, take a bite, take a chance on it? So 2 weeks ago, early July, Diamond sent me my very first purchase order, and it blew my mind. Diamond, this first shipment, it's partly them stocking up. I don't think I'll ship this many every month at all, but they have ordered, and I'm shipping them over 3,000 sidekicks for comics, and nearly 6,000 of these little minis for cards.
Dude.
So this just blew my mind. Where I thought I might have a couple cases for UPS for them. I don't know how well this will show up, but in my driveway, my little suburban driveway in Woodbridge, New Jersey, I got 2 full pallets of product. There's my son helping me wrap them for shipment. You see, he did it till he couldn't reach quite high enough. So I literally take my little trailer up to Union, New Jersey, to my manufacturer, and bring home a load, sticker them, label them, and now here we go. So those 2 pallets, what you're looking at there, you've got one huge pallet of bulk cartons of sidekicks for comics. So if a shop is interested in purchasing 4 dozen in a box at a lower rate, that's one whole pallet full of that is what Diamond opted to order this time around. The other pallet is full of my retail packaging. So a plastic bag with a 2-pack, 2 of them in it, a small shoebox with 6. So those orders are obviously, they're coming from shops that want to market, resell them with retail packaging, with barcodes and all this stuff. So it's very exciting. It's that order was 10 times what I expected, and I could not be more excited about my partnership with them. Wow. Looking forward to the future with it. Yeah.
Congratulations. So
thank you.
2,000 of those. You said about 6,000 of the cards. Yeah. It's about about 10 times what you normally. So traditionally, you would have expected about 200 a month, and it just went from 200 to 2,000.
Yeah, it just exploded. It was the first order I've gotten from Diamond. I didn't really know what to expect, but I did not expect to have to get a hold of pallets and buy the shrink wrap and work with a freight carrier that can, I don't have a loading bay. This is my house. You know what I mean? I need a shipping company that can show up with a lift gate to my driveway. So the things you learn. It's been a lot of fun. Been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Bro, I'm telling you, you are truly living the American dream. I think who wouldn't? So, um, when you first started this endeavor, um, did you have any like outside? Do you have any Kickstarters? Did you have any like kind of small business or business sponsorship? Did you just do this out of pocket and take a chance?
Yeah, I did. This is all kind of self-funded. There was not a Kickstarter. There was no investor. Um, but there were a lot of comic book sales. Again, the pandemic, the working from home. I felt so bad for those folks in the pandemic that suffered because of the lack of employment and being stuck at home. I was very fortunate. I was able to continue working that real job and earn a living to pay our regular bills with spare time to buy collections of comics, photograph them for eBay, make a lot of eBay sales. I ramped up my online comic sales and I used those funds as my seed money. So I didn't have to take a loan. You know, we tapped a household credit card for one of the molds, quickly paid that off. But no, it's just a family business. My wife's my full partner in it financially. So it's been good to not have that extra pressure of, like you said, repaying a business loan or satisfying a Kickstarter fulfillment, or I didn't have to worry about any of that.
I think that that's something that anybody who's looking to do something like this, right? If they're looking to self-publish, start creating, or they have a great design point and they want to start making their accessory, I kind of always like to kind of summarize stuff like that because you put in a lot of time. You did have alternative ways to pay some of your bills as opposed to acquiring debt, but acquiring debt is definitely a reality. If you don't have that money, how else are you going to start it? So time and money and effort and a great idea combined, that's all required. So, Doug, if you were to give any advice, because people are watching this, I'm sure, and they're thinking, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Honestly, a part of me is saying, I'm going to do that too, Doug. But
Yeah.
for the realistic side, people are thinking of it. Can you give them, what advice would you offer to people who have an idea and they want to start putting idea to paper and then ultimately fabricate something that's going to be customer deliverable? What would you tell them if you were at a convention or a bar?
Yeah, wow. Seems a little trite to say it, but take that leap and just go for it. I don't know how people did something like this 30, 40 years ago when we couldn't just get online and connect with the world of information and manufacturers and design professionals. I should point out, I did use a design firm to help me make it to the finish line with a computer drawing that could be made into a mold. You know, I leaned on my own old and outdated computer drafting skills. I had time to do this. Used some free software called ThinkCAD to sketch this thing up and make my 3D prototypes. I found a wonderful firm out of San Francisco called Rabbit Design. This is what you need. You need a good partner. Design engineers that could polish my rough piece of stone into that gem I needed to make a highly detailed and accurate computer drawing that translates to an aluminum mold. Because I'll tell you, I don't mind telling you, it cost about 10 grand to make that aluminum mold that was going to crank out thousands of sidekicks. It has to be perfect. It's not like 3D printing where you could tweak your drawing and try again. It's forever. So taking that deep breath, I did rely on Paul Watson and his team at Rabbit Design in San Francisco to take my 80% finished drawing and again, polish that into a DFM, design for manufacturing file that could make a high quality mold for me. And again, never look back. So
That's amazing.
find good partners and don't be afraid to take a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Successful companies always have good people, a good team around them, right? It would be great to say we could just do everything ourselves, but that's so unrealistic.
Yeah.
But one thing I when I'm hearing about your mold, again, I'm a vinyl record person, and it sounds
Yeah,
to me that's probably very, very similar. When you have a vinyl record and you're pressing it constantly. But in
yeah.
the vein of similarities, is there in your world a limit to how long that mold will last? Because ultimately, the friction of hot vinyl or
Yeah,
plastic
yeah,
against metal, that does wear out. That's one of the reasons the fidelity in a record ultimately degrades after
yeah.
time, because that constant friction. I know metal seems impervious, but it's not. It
Not, it's
Time
not.
does wear. How many? I mean, this may be slightly different than a vinyl record. Is it like 100,000? Is it a million? Do you have an idea on how long your mold should last?
I, I do. They've educated me on this, and this is again, I think, goes to our point of finding good partners to work with. Um, the aluminum that's used in my that was used in my mold in most injection molds like this is, as it was described to me, it's aircraft grade aluminum on steroids. In other
Oh,
words, it's not just aluminum, it's aircraft grade aluminum that is then treated, annealed to harden it further. So this is an extremely long lasting mold, expected to last for 100,000 shots. But here's the good part about working with a good partner. So the company that made my mold is producing the products for me. They would love me to order 100,000, 200,000 over time, a million pieces. The mold's guaranteed for life.
oh, there you
In other
go.
words, if I wear it out, we've won, haven't we?
Yeah.
That's a win for me. That's a win for them. If I wear this thing out, they're going to just make me another one at no charge. So what a concept. How beautiful is that, right? Because of course that's good business for both of us. It means I can keep making these things forever and they can keep making them for me and keep getting my payments forever. So now auto manufacturers producing bigger, more critical things, use a steel mold, which is designed to last even longer. It's about 8 times heavier and 8 times more expensive. So that would be overkill for this.
You're right.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I wish that for you, brother. I hope. So my wish for you is I hope your mold wears out so they can give you
Let's
another
wear
one.
this thing out and let's go
Yeah,
again.
all you have to
Yeah,
do is worry
yeah.
about where you're going to put your accounts. Right. Good for you. Good for
Then
you.
the other thing you learn is about trademarking and patenting. So I've got a very good local, well, somewhat local to me, patent attorney that's helped me apply for my Sidekick trademark, which is trademarking the brand, there it is, right? The brand Sidekick to my product. I learned a lot about that. Suzuki made a Sidekick SUV. I think Motorola or someone made a Sidekick little phone. But in the world now of collectibles, I own the trademark. So again, good partners, finding a good people to work with. A patent attorney applied for my trademark, and that's been issued. I own the trademark to the name Sidekick now. About a year and a half ago, we also applied for the design patent, the physical patent on the shape and the size of the thing with the drawings. And so that's been applied for. The expectation is it takes 18 to 24 months for the patent office to hopefully, knock on wood, approve that thing. With any luck, I'll be an owner of a design patent as well before the end of the year.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So where will you? Because I know since you also participate in a lot of comic conventions and you're selling comic books, and by the way, as everybody, I bought several collections from him. And I think I bought in excess of 20 boxes from Doug. He's great. He's a great vendor. As you can tell, he's a delightful guy. He's educated. He's just a great person. Why don't you, Doug? Are you still going to be planning to do conventions in the foreseeable future? And if so, can you tell the audience where they can see you next and the next couple of places?
Thanks for asking. I did 35 comic shows last year in 2023. I went hard because the product was new and I needed to get the word out and show it off to people in the hobby. I've stepped back from that. I don't have any scheduled this summer. I miss it. I really do. My back doesn't miss it.
Yeah.
Lugging comics in and out of an Elks Lodge or an arena is no fun, but it is kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
I don't have any on tap. My goal is to get back into the convention scene next year, 2024. and to venture a little further. So last year, 2025. Thank you, son. Thank you, my son. It reminds me of what, Dad, what year is it, right?
It was a
So last year I
season.
did yeah, last year I did conventions as far north as Boston and down to I did Baltimore, Pennsylvania, Cleveland, all over New Jersey, New York. My goal, you know, I always promoted the Sidekick while selling comics to kind of pay for the whole venture, the whole activity. My hope is that next year I'll be out there with just Sidekicks, networking with distributors, shop owners, dealers, and travel a little lighter and make it out to San Diego and Chicago and Seattle and doing bigger shows a little further from home and meet some new people.
Yeah, and at that point, all that's a write-off, right? That's a
Absolutely, business expense. Yeah, and hopefully paying for itself. Yeah.
well, Doug. Obviously, we're friends, and I will communicate with you on the side as well. So everybody, sidekicksupplies.com. If you do meet Doug, please say hi to him. The guy is awesome. And at this point, everybody, if you like this kind of content, I would encourage you to hit subscribe because I will continue to meet with amazing comic related people. And Doug, truly, this was a pleasure talking to you. I appreciate your time today. I know you're waiting for the truck to pick up your 2 pallets.
Yeah.
So I won't keep you any longer, but seriously, thank you for your time. Everybody, thank you for watching, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, John. Appreciate it, my friend.
Good girl.